Hello and welcome back to the World Championship in Through the Ages. Before we will continue taking a look at a game of my own group again, today we are going to take a look at the four-player game of the upper bracket group. And in this stage, there's only one upper bracket group left. The winner of this group will actually directly qualify for the finals. And this group is stacked with some really strong players, which is why I really wanted to cover some of the games of this group, because I'm really excited to see what those players will come up with in their games. And to quickly introduce them, we have Wawrzyniec, who has been one of the top players for a very long time now. He was actually now for a while the highest rated player, but in the last update got overtaken by Cengiz, but still is the second highest rated player in the Clicker rating, according to the conservative rating, and also managed to win the international championship one time. Generally, has just been performing on a very high level very consistently. And yeah, so that is one player who made it to the upper bracket group of the stage. Then we have Marta Pecheur, who is, of course, the world champion of 2024. Has also won a bunch of other tournaments, intermezzo championships, and also has been playing on a very high level for a very long time, is in the 5th position at the moment in the click rating, is also, I think, in great form at the moment. In different tournaments, he is performing very well at the moment, so maybe he just timed it very well to get on his peak performance now that the World Championship is going to conclude soon, and he is the second one of the opponents here. Then we have A440, and with that we have the last year's world champion. So we have the world champion of 2024, the world champion of 2025 in this group. He won last year, and yeah, with that, of course, has shown that he is one of the absolute best players in the game. And it will be interesting to see if he maybe can do it again and how he will do in that group in general. And then as the last player, we have SandHippo. And SandHippo for a long time was just known as a two-player expert and maybe one of the best two-player players overall. But in the last year's World Championship, he also joined, and with that, of course, also played some 3 and 4-player games. He joined with an alternative account. He asked the tournament organizer before that. It sparked some controversy, but he asked before that, so no wrongdoing on his side. And he yeah, then made it to the semifinals, and this year he is participating with his main account, and yeah, again pulled off some really great result, won all of his groups so far. And also, when we take a look at the estimated rating, he has actually the highest estimated rating of all players in the whole rating at the moment. So the rating is basically saying us, I'm a bit uncertain about him, but if I would need to make a guess, I would actually say he is the highest or the best opponent or the best player in the game at the moment. So with the highest estimated rating. So as you can see, this group is really stacked with some top players, and of course, I'm really excited to see what they will now do in the four-player game that we are taking a look at. And as last year, I have not seen this game. I don't know the outcome. I try to avoid spoilers as much as I could. The only thing I heard is that it is a very interesting game, so I'm very interested to see what is awaiting me, but I don't know anything on how it will go. I don't know anything about the outcome, and I hope you are as excited as me to now take a look at the game. Alright, here we are at the game, and first of all we will take a quick look at the leaders and wonders, just checking what might be awaiting us here. We have Hollywood, Chaplin and Fleming in H3, so that could be something. We have Sid Meier, Einstein, Marie Curie, some lab leaders. We have Pierre, but no internet, also no internet for the lab leaders. We have Mandela, there's the Manhattan Project, but no Churchill, no Gandhi. We have the Suez Canal H2 as well as James Cook, so let's see if one of the players will manage to pull off to go for that combination maybe. We have otherwise maybe not the strongest H2 wonders, Louvre, Eiffel Tower, Kremlin, Statue, a lot of the strong ones are missing. We have James Watt in the game, but no Railroad. We have Newton, but no Nobel. We have Anthony Gaudi and Darwin as some culture leaders, but no Bach and Shakespeare. And then we have Robespierre and Catherine as military action leaders. Shishka is there as a military action leader in H1. Nostradamus, Genghis Khan, Barbarossa can all help with the strength. Isabella, Eleanor, Barbarossa can all help with setting up a colonization game. We have Universitas and the Silk Road, Great Wall but no Emichi Castle, St. Peter's Basilica but no Forbidden City, and the Machu Picchu is there as well. And yeah, let's start with taking a look at the game. A440 is playing in first position. He just grabs the pyramids, can maybe hope to get at least one of those 3 leaders for one civil action at his next turn, and the pyramids of course is just a very strong wonder, so that looks like a solid pick. Wawrzyniec goes for Stonehenge and Caesar, and Wawrzyniec interestingly is known as a bit of that he likes Caesar. So as you can see, he picks him over Sun Tzu. Marta Pecheur maybe would never do a move like this. I think he likes Sun Tzu a lot more, but Wawrzyniec likes Caesar, so let's see what he can pull off with him. Takes him together with the Stonehenge. Marta Pecheur will then indeed go for Sun Tzu, and I guess the Rome roads, yes. And SandHippo, probably one of the leaders plus a yellow card, probably Hippocrates. Let's see, and yes, Hippocrates and Frugality. That means Moses is left for A440. Actually, in the winner's interview of him, he stated that Moses may be one of the leaders that is a bit undervalued by the community. Not that he is very strong, but just that he thinks he's very solid, and he doesn't feel bad about just taking him. So I will expect that he might just go for him. But I guess there's also now an interesting alternative available. Let's see. He takes the Engineering Genius. He is actually not going for any leader. That's an interesting choice. Let's see, Wawrzyniec has Caesar. I guess all of the opponents have a leader already. And he can then maybe just go for Hammurabi at the next turn for one civil action, or for Homer. I guess playing against Caesar and Sun Tzu, you have to be a bit careful about grabbing Hammurabi. But yeah, of course, if he doesn't take him now, he doesn't get a civil action from him this turn, but he can also just get him for cheaper, and the Engineering Genius is quite helpful to finish the pyramids quickly. So an interesting choice, but it might be correct, and I will be interested to see whether A440 is brave enough to take Hammurabi against those 2 leaders. I mean, he is playing in first position, probably it should be fine, or if he is rather just going for Homer. So an interesting choice here. He draws 2 cards. Now it's Wawrzyniec's turn. He goes for Caesar, builds a mine, takes the urban growth. Marta Pecheur, interestingly, takes the monarchy for 3 civil actions here. So that is quite expensive. Is willing to delay electing Sun Tzu here. At the next turn, he's not really prepared to do a revolution. It's interesting to see him pick the monarchy for such a big amount of civil actions. Maybe didn't want to make it that there's a chance that A440 gets Hammurabi plus monarchy, but I guess SandHippo, if now Marta Pecheur would just take an HA yellow card as his last civil action, might take the monarchy for 2. Maybe he might not, because maybe he wants to elect Hippo, take the Colossus, build a mine. Maybe it's a small hate draft here so that A440 doesn't get Hammurabi plus monarchy, which really mitigates the weakness of Hammurabi with quickly getting the 3rd military action. And of course, the monarchy can also turn out to be strong for Marta Pecheur, but certainly an interesting choice here. Also taking it over knights, which is usually maybe one of the cards which is picked for a lot of civil actions in a Sun Tzu game. SandHippo goes for Hippocrates, increases his population, builds a mine, takes the Colossus. That makes sense. I think the Colossus is a great pick here with Zeus and Cook in the game, and with playing against Caesar and Sun Tzu, so a really strong wonder to get here, I would say. A440 starts by building the 2nd lab. Now I'm very interested to see what his leader choice will be. Stinger maybe would just still go for Hammurabi, but it's a tough choice. First copy of Monarchy is now gone. Let's see what he will do. Homer is helping a bit with building up for some military. The Happy Face is helpful as well. Maybe he could also just take Homer in hand, take the knights in hand, or he could go for Hammurabi, elect him, take the knights. I'm kind of expecting that he might take the knights here, but let's see what leader choice he will go for here. It's Homer. It's probably the safer pick. I mean, SandHippo has Colossus as well. It can just backfire very heavily going for Hammurabi here, and he's not willing to take that risk. Maybe some other players would just go for Hammurabi here. In one of Peter's games on his channel, I think it was the game where Wolves joined as a co-commentator, Wolves actually took Hammurabi for 3, and I think there was also both Caesar and Sun Tzu as his opponents, and he took actually Hammurabi for 3. A440 is known as a bit of a military player himself, and maybe with that is respecting the danger that he could face if he takes Hammurabi here. And I actually like Homer quite a bit in 4-player games, and quite a bit with the Pyramids, so I think Homer is quite a solid pick here. Wawrzyniec starts the seeding, development of settlement is revealed. He seeds again, has found the double event with Caesar, opens the development of science, builds the second lab, takes the masonry, a great technology to have with the Stonehenge, and actually develops it immediately. Just looks like a very solid turn here, I would say. Martin Pêcheur is actually just doing the revolution, and he can of course get out of corruption now by building a warrior thanks to the development of settlement that has been revealed. So he just quickly goes into the monarchy, interestingly, builds that warrior, and maybe at the next turn either can I build a second lab, or if there are some resources revealed, finish the Rome roads. So an interesting opening by him. SandHippo, I would imagine, maybe takes Nostradamus here, a quick replacement for Hippocrates. Yes, he will collect one more token at the least. I'm expecting him to elect Nostradamus at the next turn. A440 seeds and opens the development of agriculture, so more food gained for the players. He will elect Homer this turn. Actually starts already by building a knight, and I mean, there's even a chance that the event deck could already flip before his next turn. Wawrzyniec might double seed, Martin Pêcheur could seed, SandHippo could seed, so he just maybe wants to be prepared for that, and maybe also just wants to start using Homer's additional resources. So he develops the knight, builds the knight, takes the rich land, and ends his turn. And at the next turn is just enough resource to finish the pyramids with the engineering genius. Wawrzyniec seeds and opens the development of politics. That should make it now very likely that he can again double seed. And he will not double seed. Either hasn't found an event that he wants to push, or maybe doesn't feel prepared enough for the event deck to flip. He actually takes the cartography here, an indicator that maybe he could have already pushed some colonies. And then he increases his population, builds 2 steps, and develops the cartography already. So let's see if there are some colonies coming. Martin Pêcheur will now elect Sun Tzu, increase his population 2 times, builds the second lab, gets some economy going, and then takes the breakthrough. Doesn't want to go for Genghis Khan. With Sun Tzu, he can then basically go for every tactic that he wants to, but maybe rather wants to leave him open for some other leaders. There's Barbarossa, there's Shishka coming down the road, Eleanor is a nice transitional leader at the end of the age, so rather just wants to take the breakthrough here, which I guess is a fair choice. Could have taken the engineering genius to make sure that he can finish the Rome roads at the next turn, but I think likely that there will be some developments revealed and that there will be some resource gained before his next turn. SandHippo takes the Code of Laws, gets the 5th civil action going, elects Nostradamus this turn, takes the engineering genius, the breakthrough, 2 strong yellow cards, so he generally just got a lot of strong cards this turn, but then has to build a warrior to get out of corruption, but the additional strength might be very useful very soon anyway. A440 seeds. I kind of imagine that he will go for Jan Shishka this turn, needs still a replacement leader for Homer, and maybe doesn't want to leave Shishka for Martin Pêcheur or for Wawrzyniec. He seeds, opens the development of civil life, will use that, I think, to increase his population, builds another knight. Let's see. Yes, the heavy cavalry tactic, that one is of course not the ideal one for Shishka. Let's see if he will still go for him just for the 3rd military action, or if he will rather just go for Isabella or wait for a different leader. He will still go for Jan Shishka. Takes the iron, interestingly, but I guess he has the knights already, should be well enough prepared to defend himself, and then maybe he can now allow himself to go very low in science, build up some iron production, and then finish the pyramids. Should be quite safe now with all of the knights that he has having, and then builds the first step of the pyramids with the engineering genius. Wawrzyniec seeds and opens the development of planning. The options for the development of planning are the development of markets, trade routes, and drafts. Normally the trade routes should probably be best, and I think it's also what he took here. He placed the fighting band tactic, doesn't see the second time, maybe he wants to get a bit stronger or even better prepared for colonies, which he might be able to do now with Isabella. Elects Isabella, builds a warrior, builds another warrior, goes up to 5 strength, takes a copy of knights and a copy of patriotism. With that can maybe after he potentially wins the colony, still build up a lot of military, because things might get a bit dangerous soon. Now Martin Pêcheur offers a pact to SandHippo, wants to be able to use food as resources. SandHippo rejects the pact. Martin Pêcheur is willing to take the last copy of knights for 3 civil actions, otherwise maybe SandHippo would have had a chance to take it, and then he will build one. Let's see if he has a tactic for them. Has the medieval army tactic, and of course A440 has taken Yanshishka. He is maybe on the heavy cavalry tactic for now, but if this tactic gets upgraded and he's able to copy it at some point, then Shishka has a lot of potential. So I think that might turn out to be a very good pick, despite only having the heavy cavalry tactic. And then, yeah, he will now be at 7 strength. Matapeshur is the strongest, and then increases his population. SandHippo seeds, the first stage 1 event is revealed, and it's quite an influential one. The vast territory. So Wawrzyniec has gone for the cartography, has gone for Isabella. Let's see what he has to pay. Maybe still an army. Yes, an army and 1 resource. Maybe doesn't have any colonization card. Maybe wants to keep a colonization card in hand to be able to defend against an aggression from A440. Let's see if he will try one and if Wawrzyniec will be able to defend it. But he has won a very strong colony in a game with the Suez Canal and James Cook. So if he can stay competitive in the strength, that might give him really a big edge, as we have seen in my last 4-player game, where I of course even had Barbarossa, which makes the vast territory even more insane, but that winning that can just be quite strong. SandHippo this turn finishes the Colossus, gets a bit stronger, takes the bread and circuses. I think there was Pierre in the game, yes, so having that is not bad. Takes the swordsman, he missed out on the knights, so it's important to have those, and then just increases his population. So I think from all the players, I would say SandHippo has maybe just done the most in normal solid stuff. Nothing very out of the extraordinary from him, but just doing solid stuff is often just quite good. And let's see how he will be able to defend himself. But he has the Colossus, has Nostradamus, and that maybe should help him. A440 is not willing to cede, instead offers the open borders agreement to SandHippo, who is of course happy about it with having Nostradamus. But he probably doesn't want to give it to Wawrzyniec, who just won a colony and really needs military actions to rebuild, and Matapeshur with Sun Tzu could still be quite threatening and could get maybe Barbarossa, so I guess that is maybe a solid choice. He will just turn and start going for the iron, finishes the pyramids, builds another knight with using Homer, and then could already elect Yanshishka, but is deciding to keep him in hand for 1 more turn. There could be rats, there could be pestilence, so it's maybe better to increase his population. So now the strongest. Wawrzyniec is the weakest, and he has to be a bit afraid now. Let's see how much strength he is able to build up here. He builds a warrior, builds even more warriors, is not willing to go for the knights here. Instead goes for the warfare. With that, if he has 2 military actions, he would at the moment be able to defend. He's not willing to build more, not able to build more strength though. So let's see if there will be an aggression happening. And if he maybe actually kept 2 defense cards in hand. Matapeshur cedes and opens the next very important colony. This time Wawrzyniec is not willing to bid too much, just bidding 4, and Matapeshur is able to win the colony for an army at least. So he has not drawn that many colonization cards despite having Sun Tzu. I guess he also delayed electing Sun Tzu by a little bit, but maybe could have had 2 of them to just send a knight away, but he has to send an army away, so it's at least a bit expensive for him. He builds a knight, goes for Barbarossa, builds another warrior, takes the urban growth, but he has a bit of a problem now. At the next turn, he doesn't have enough resources to finish the Rome roads here, and yeah, maybe in order to rebuild, and maybe then in order to just have enough strength to be safe from an aggression, he might need to sacrifice the Rome roads here, which is certainly a bit of a cost, but there are a lot of H1 wonders. Maybe he can go for a late H1 wonder instead of finishing the Rome roads. He then also takes the alchemy together with the urban growth. He will still soon be able to upgrade his economy a little bit. SandHippo seeds and opens the good harvest, so 2 food for everyone. Maybe Matapeshur with having now Barbarossa is the most happy about that. SandHippo builds a swordsman, takes the monarchy, takes the urban growth, increases population, and who knows, at the next turn might just be or maybe just wants to do a monarchy revolution even. A440 does not try an aggression, maybe doesn't have one, instead cedes, and there is a strength event revealed, the call to arms. Wawrzyniec is now quite low in civil actions, so his next turn might be a bit awkward, and Matapeshur also loses one. SandHippo doesn't lose one, so he's not disrupted from potential revolution plans. And this turn, A440 has to go for Shishka, I would imagine. And yeah, then it's a bit of a question, maybe we'll go for irrigation. Great Wall is not the greatest here with being that heavily on knights. Maybe just has to take a bunch of cards which are maybe not the greatest, but I guess he can elect Yanshishka, increases population, maybe take irrigation reserves, irrigation swordsman or something like this. Goes for Yanshishka, uses Homer's resource one more time in order to build it warrior. So Homer has really given him a lot of value. I think he built 4 units with him. So 4 resources and a permanent happy face is actually quite a lot of value. And which is again why I think Homer is quite a decent leader in 4-player games, because you basically all the time need to build up some strength, and if you very nicely do it turn by turn, Homer can give a lot of resources, similar to a leader like Cleopatra, but at the end also give you a permanent happy face, and even it costs a civil action. I think that's still very strong to get. So I think a strong Homer game here by A440. He increases his population. At the next turn still has an uprising issue, so it will be interesting to see how he will fix that. Maybe he can go for theology. If there's something like new deposits coming, maybe for St. Peter's Basilica, but at the moment he would need to suspend a unit again. But he just built one with Homer, so I kind of imagine that he needs to have a plan here. Let's see what he will do at the next turn. Wawrzyniec seeds is the weakest, but is not afraid of seeding, and also kind of gets rewarded. Another colony is revealed. He has only 2 civil actions this turn, so it could be a bit of an awkward turn for him, but maybe he can use that colony to then make a transition into knights to soon copy the upgraded knights tactic that Martin Pêcheur has presented. And he actually has to only send 1 warrior where he has 2 colonization cards, gains even a bit of strength. He is missing science though to develop the knights, has only 2 civil actions, so he can finish the Stonehenge, but then he can't play patriotism or something, so let's see what he will do. I very much imagine him to see him finishing Stonehenge, and then maybe just play the patriotism builder warrior. Yeah, so with that he only needs 1 more defense card to be able to defend against an aggression from A440. Has just drawn again 3 more cards from the strategic territory, so with that maybe should be relatively safe. And while he has not found a way to build up a lot of economy, he has now 2 colonies and a masonry. And if he manages to get the Suez Canal, that of course can give him great benefits later on in the game. But he's maybe also a bit vulnerable. I guess he can start building knights soon. Maybe he will be fine then, has the 3rd military action. But is low in civil action, so let's see how he will be able to do. Plays the Legion tactic, took up to 9, so maybe just wants to be completely safe, and of course has 1 more strength now, which also can potentially be make a difference for events. Martin Pêcheur elects Barbarossa, meaning the medieval army tactic will indeed be the one that gets upgraded. There were no additional resources revealed by any events, meaning he can't finish the Rome roads, can go for a lab upgrade though, takes the reserves, and then uses Barbarossa 1 time to go for another knight, is now at 12 strength, but still, after his turn, A440 will still be the strongest. He takes the theology, so might need the happy faces soon, and also maybe takes it away from A440, who soon needs to find a fix for his happy faces, and the 2nd copy of Theology hasn't been revealed yet. SandHippo will indeed just go for a revolution. I think it's quite nice to have the government form just going. Now he can fully concentrate on just building up a bit of economy in H2. He also gets stronger, is now 12 strength, is completely safe from any events that target the weakest player. A440 seeds, and the uncertain borders are revealed, and that is of course also a way to fix this uprising issue. Another way is that the age actually doesn't end, so yeah, 2 ways on how to fix the uprising issue here. Maybe he had knowledge about that event, and the other opponents went very close, but they didn't manage to overtake him, meaning that he will now get the yellow token. Wawrzyniec loses 1. He has already quite a bunch of additional ones, maybe not the worst thing for him to lose, but of course never great to lose 1. For A440, I think the yellow token makes a very big difference here. And I kind of imagine to see him going for a wonder here. He could also just go for alchemy upgrades, but maybe Machu or St. Peter's Basilica. I think I kind of expect to see him go for one of those wonders. Let's see. He interestingly goes for the swordsman. That's of course a way for him to get even more strength. Yeah, that's an interesting choice. So let's see. I guess he wants to be stronger. It's now very low in science though, so that could be an issue, but there is Robespierre in the game, upgrades 1 more mine, takes the St. Peter's Basilica, so he is still going for a wonder, and then plays the reserves, can finish the St. Peter's Basilica at the next turn, and the next turn can then also copy the upgraded medieval army tactic, and then he is starting to be really, really threatening here. So He is really setting up a big amount of strength, and I mean, he is known as a military-heavy player, so is willing to prioritize building up even more strength. And but at the same time, he has now his fully upgraded iron mines going, has a wonder to invest into. So I think his position is actually looking quite strong here. Wawrzyniec is still the weakest. Let's see if he is still willing to continue pushing. No, he is not. There might also be something like rats. Guess he might have knowledge about that, but if not, then that could be extremely dangerous. And he can now go for the knights, build one, soon copy the upgraded tactic, plays the phalanx tactic for now, so to at least be also at 12 strength, and then takes the alchemy together with the masonry, can go for some very cheap upgrades there. Now it's Martapejeur's turn. He seeds, and a border conflict is revealed. A440 immediately getting rewarded for increasing his strength, and Wawrzyniec again loses something to his strength event. And those 3 additional resources might actually be very influential, because what A440 can now do is finish the St. Peter's Basilica, which actually doubles the happy face from Homer, making it an even better Homer game. But then he can actually build another knight and copy the upgraded medieval army tactic, and then he has 4 tactics going with Jan Žižka, and that will actually increase the strength by a lot. I mean, that's plus 8 from the tactic, plus 2 from the unit. He might be at 24 strength at his next turn, thanks to the border conflict, so that could be quite strong for him. But the question is, of course, has he some payoff cards in hand? Martapejeur goes for the Code of Laws here, doesn't want to be stuck on 5 civil actions. Upgrades another lab, ends his turn. And has taken a breakthrough for 3 civil actions, so wants to have a bit more science available. SandHippo proceeds, the raiders are revealed. He, thanks to Nostradamus, but he would even win the tiebreaker, manages to avoid being one of the 2 weakest, so Martapejeur and Wawrzyniec lose a bit of stuff. He goes for the bread and circuses here, gets even more strength, builds yet another warrior, maybe wants to be able to bid for colonies potentially, has also had some additional draws from the Colossus, takes the irrigation, and then just some yellow cards, not willing to go for late iron here. And yeah, his position, he is safe from the strength for now at least. A440 soon might go to ridiculous amounts of strength for this phase of the game. So he's safe, he has at least a nice amount of civil military actions, but his economy is lagging a bit behind, so he needs to find some ways to fix that now quite quickly. One way to do that, of course, would be James Watt. If he gets a nice James Watt-Cole combination, that of course could be quite strong for him. Now it's A440's turn, and I'm very interested to see whether he will just finish the St. Peter's Basilica, build a knight, copy the tactic. Of course, then he would only get 1 draw, but if he has an aggression already in hand, it could just be very, very strong. He finishes St. Peter's, builds another knight, copies the tactic, and, as said, is it 24 strength now? Maybe we'll now just take the cannons, I could imagine, which could be an important tech to have. He's missing a civil action to take the Republic. That could also be interesting, revolting into it at the next turn maybe. But I guess now he might just take the cannons here. Actually not. He takes the reserves, and I guess, fair enough, the cannons... I mean, he has so much strength from the tactic at the moment. The cannons, of course, long-term are important to have, but the reserves actually allows him to get another population out, maybe even get more strength going. And yeah, so fair enough. Maybe the cannons just take too long to give any meaningful value here. He's low in science anyway, and the amount of strength that he's getting from the tactic at the moment is, even for H2 tactics, not that easy. It's not that easy to rival that strength. I mean, he's getting 12 strength from the tactic, so would need something like double defensive army to just rival that strength at the moment. Now let's see if the opponents find a way to be safe from any aggression, and if A440 has one, and what player he will choose at the end. Wawrzyniec builds another knight, can now maybe copy the upgraded tactic. Will do that, is at 17 strength. If he got lucky and drawn early... got an earlier H2 defense card, then he might be able to defend, but I guess chances for that are not too likely. Still, maybe it's worthwhile to at least have a way to defend himself, because if one of the other players just doesn't find a way to set himself up to have any chance to defend, then Wawrzyniec might still manage to avoid getting hit by an aggression by such a move. Now let's see if we will just go for an alchemy upgrade. Could even, no, He has the cartography, so won't go for the navigation here. Instead, he will go for an alchemy upgrade, and I guess that he maybe will grab the cannons. Also not, and I guess, yeah, fair enough. Doing a Republic Revolution is just so strong for him here. Can do a revolution, build another knight, so that hopefully the turn after he will also have a very big amount of strength, and I think getting that revolution going is more important than the cannons. So the cannons being a bit disrespected here, but with this upgraded tactic, players have a strong tactic to be on, and the cannons maybe just not being as important here, and especially this Republic Revolution could be insanely strong for Wawrzyniec. Marta Bashir seeds and opens another colony. SandHippo is able to win it. He made sure to build an additional warrior. Let's see if he can use it. Uses a swordsman, still stays at 12 plus 3 strength and wins a colony for his own. Let's see which of the players will maybe at the end be able to go for the Suez Canal. Marta Bashir uses Barbarossa to go for another knight, destroys a farm. Now he says famine. Will he play the reserves to avoid having famine? Will he destroy even one more thing to build another unit to not get hit by an aggression? That will be interesting. He could maybe imagine him to take the strategy. He has enough science to develop it at the next turn. And then if he makes himself safe now, at least might be safe then also the turn after with the strategy. So maybe he could even destroy another thing and build another warrior, but it would be so costly. Let's see. Takes the strategy. No, that would maybe be too costly. But he would now need an H1 defense card and 2 H2 defense cards in order to defend himself. So both of Wawrzyniec and Marta Bashir probably not being able to defend themselves, but at least offering a chance for being able to defend themselves. And at least for now, A440 has only drawn 1 H2 card, so he might only have H1 aggressions. And yeah, Marta Bashir just accepting the famine here, but I guess he's low in culture anyway. He will lose a bit of culture this turn, but afterwards it just doesn't do anything because he has no culture saved up so far. So I guess the farm is maybe just the best thing to lose here. But at some point he will need to rebuild it because he can't be stuck on one farm for the whole game. I mean, maybe he finds a way to do it, but so that might be a bit tricky at some point. But with the strategy, he soon might be relatively safe. He also ignores the cannons, by the way, but he doesn't really have the economical power to invest into them. And again, the tactic is just too strong. SandHippo, interestingly, cancels the open borders agreement with A440. That means that A440 will get less draws, which makes it maybe less likely that he can get a lot of benefits out of this pact. And maybe it could also mean that this +2 just makes the difference in order for SandHippo to be able to defend himself or not. So let's see what his turn looks like. He goes for the warfare, develops it. With that, is it 4 military actions now anyway, upgrades a warrior. He is taking the cannons, the engineering genius, plays the cultural heritage, and develops the irrigation. Maybe there are star gauges coming, maybe he just wants to use his actions efficiently. And yeah, now he's at 17, meaning he just needs 1 defense card. If he would have kept the pact, he would have needed 2 defense cards. So it indeed makes a difference, and probably that was the reason why he cancelled the pact here. And with that, if A440 is going for an aggression, I think it will be directed against either Wawrzyniec or Marta Bashir. So let's see if he has an aggression available. And he does have one, goes against Wawrzyniec, who has only drawn 1 H2 defense card, maybe has done some calculations. And I mean, he can't steal the science away from Marta Bashir, meaning Marta Bashir the next turn, even if he gets hit by an aggression, might be in a position to make himself safe from another aggression anyway. And Wawrzyniec, if he is not targeted, can build another knight. Now Wawrzyniec can't build another knight, making it that maybe A440 has even another shot at getting an aggression off at the next turn. Gets 3 additional resources, plays the reserves, gets another population out. Now takes the cannons, and I guess it worked out for him. He gets it now very cheaply. Let's see if he goes for something like journalism or scientific method. It would be a great thing for him to invest into. I could very much see him just taking the scientific method here, and that's also what he will do. And interestingly, he will also go for another swordsman. Gets even more strength, gets 1 less draw, but maybe makes it even more likely that he can get another aggression off if he has one in hand. And with building a swordsman is also prepared to maybe transition out of Jan Žižka. For example, Newton at the next turn appears, he can go into a very strong economical build with Newton. And for the moment, I would say A440 is just clearly the best position. Has those iron mines upgraded, is in a very threatening position, and yeah, just has a very strong game going here. Wawrzyniec seeds. The scientific breakthrough is revealed, at least gets the second amount, as most amount of science out of it, and he will just revolt here. Misses out on riflemen and cannons that could have some implications for later on, but it will also just give him an insanely big boost to go for the Republic Revolution. Martin Pecheur seeds and opens the Barbarians. A440 is the most culture, so that's also one thing that he is going for himself. But of course he is the strongest, so nothing happens. Martin Pecheur this turn can go for the strategy, goes for the Rifleman as well, takes the cannons, the urban growth, upgrades the Rifleman, is now the second strongest. Again is famine, but yeah, he's at 0 culture, so he doesn't care for the moment. SandHippo seeds and opens the Dark Ages, so maybe indeed the reason why he developed the irrigation, with of course having Nostradamus, he had probably knowledge about that, and yeah, Wawrzyniec loses the most science, all players lose a little bit of science. I mean, the scientific breakthrough was just revealed. SandHippo this turn can start going for some farm upgrades, will be able to get another population out at the next turn, and then just takes 2 yellow cards. Wave with being on bronze mines can be extremely important, and the frugality to get more population out as well. And yeah, maybe he is just hoping to get James Watt plus Cole at some point, or maybe he could also get into something like scientific method plus Newton. Let's see if A440 has another aggression. He has one, and he has even drawn an H2 aggression, so that's a bit unfortunate for Wawrzyniec. It would be interesting to know if A440 even had this aggression at the turn before, because it could actually be reasonable to play the blunder first, steal the resources so that Wawrzyniec can't build up more military, and then afterwards go for the raid. If he would have gone for the raid first, maybe Wawrzyniec would have gone for another knight, and it's uncertain if the blunder goes through, but of course it's also possible that A440 just drew the aggression the turn before, and of course that is making his position even more threatening. He goes for the scientific method this turn, goes for 2 upgrades, and then takes the selective breeding. And no, just again, he soon can fix all of his areas of his economy, and things are looking great for him. Has now enough science to also go into a government form at some point. Is skipping those for now, interestingly, meaning that there's only 1 left in the deck, right? Only 1 Conmon, but he might have a chance to get that one, as 2 of his opponents in front of him have Monarchy. Wawrzyniec this turn lost 2 buildings, a big setback for him. If he somehow manages to get a Suez Canal going, though, he might still manage to make a comeback economically. So he builds a knight, is now probably safe from an aggression. Takes the journalist and does not take the Suez Canal. I mean, it is quite expensive. Maybe needs to hope to get it at the next turn. Maybe doesn't have a colony drawn right now, and of course would be quite a big gamble to just take it without a colony. Let's see if one of his opponents will take it away. Martin Pecheur opens the Pestilence, which for now fixes his famine, but the famine, I mean, I guess he has produced some culture now with seeding. He goes for James Cook. Let's see if he just goes for James Cook and Suez Canal. Goes for the architecture, goes for the Suez Canal, plays the reserves for resources, builds 1 step, but still doesn't have enough resources to finish that at the next turn. SandHippo, oh, that's actually interesting. He goes for a war with Nostradamus, with starting his turn with 5 strengths behind. He actually loses a population at the start of his turn. My guess would be that he will go for Catherine, gets an additional military action, and has the defensive army tactic. That's the only way that I can envision how he will be able to go for a successful war here. That is certainly one of the most surprising wars that I have seen. Nostradamus declaring this war, being by far the weakest player. Out of the sudden, he pulls off this war over territory, so that is quite crazy. And let's see how it will work for him. He loses a population to the Pestilence. Maybe another reason why I really wanted to have the frugality, because I felt like, yeah, it's good, but it doesn't give you another population immediately. Now that he loses 1 to the Pestilence, though, he will be able to get 2 population out immediately, so I guess maybe he will just lose a farm or something else, get 2 population out, go for Catherine, play the wave, go for 2 cannons, reveal the defensive army tactic, but let's see if my feeling is right about that. He actually loses a mine, rather wants to keep the population income, which I guess is fair enough. Goes for Catherine, elects Catherine, plays the wave, goes for the cannons, increases population again, builds a cannon, builds another cannon, upgrades the farm actually, and has the defensive army tactic. So out of the sudden, SandHippo is the strongest, but he had to destroy mine, and his economy is looking quite weak. So it will be the question if he can recover from that. Who knows, maybe, though he might have a follow-up aggression, which might help him to get back into the game. I mean, he is, of course, completely in the game, but catch up economically. So that was a very surprising one. Out of the sudden, SandHippo is even the strongest. A440 offers an international trade agreement to Marta Pescher. He just gets hit by the war at the moment. With that, maybe he's a bit in a troublesome position, still has only one farm, and with that, maybe he's the choice for him to give him some additional resources. He himself wants to have some additional food, which maybe he just needs a bit more at the moment than additional resources. Actually, he loses a farm to the pestilence. An interesting choice, but maybe he didn't really have anything else to choose from. Maybe could have lost a swordsman. But he has drawn that few H2 cards that if he just loses a bit of strength here, 2 strength, maybe SandHippo could even try an aggression against him. And with being in a generally strong position, it's maybe just something that he's not willing to risk. Instead, just rather loses the farm and knows that in 2 turns he will be able to increase his population. And he even gets the Statue of Liberty. Is maybe at a small risk now, though, at missing out on all of the H2 government forms. Wawrzyniec seeds and opens the foray. He could have maybe had a chance to be part of that, but SandHippo got stronger, so now SandHippo will get some much needed resources. Had of course also knowledge about that with Nostradamus, so knew that he might get a bit of help from the resources here. Wawrzyniec takes the breakthrough, the selective breeding, the urban growth, and builds a farm. But yeah, this game is a bit of a mess. Wawrzyniec having no urban buildings, 0 science income, Marta Pescher being stuck at that one farm. It will be a challenge for him to finish the Suez Canal, being hit by a war. SandHippo actually going for that war, but being only in 2 bronze mines, 2 labs. Only A440 has an extremely solid position, but at least he needed to go down to 1 farm. Doesn't have a government farm yet, but still, I would say his position is still the strongest here for certain. He will lose Jančiška though, so soon he will lose a bit of strength, and who knows, maybe that could actually cause some issues for him. Wawrzyniec builds that farm, ends his turn. Marta Pescher seeds. Crusades are revealed. He again loses some culture. And he actually had 6 culture saved up, so this time couldn't just be at a position where he doesn't have any culture and then be fine with losing the fort. It's a bit of a hit towards him. SandHippo gains some culture. Marta Pescher takes the revolutionary idea. Let's see if he will even defend, or if he's just saying, I want to save up resources for the Suez Canal, need to get that going as quickly as possible. I think that would be very reasonable. But maybe he will also just go for an upgrade or even destroy something built in the rifleman, but then the Suez Canal is maybe delayed in all eternity, so I could imagine that he just is not increasing his strength at all and wants to be able to set up for a Suez Canal at the next turn. Or I guess what he could do, because he can spend 2 resources and still finish the Suez Canal at the next turn, maybe he will disband something again. Maybe it will actually be again another farm or a mine, but then he can't finish it. So maybe he disbands a farm or a lab to build a warrior to at least get another tactic. It's +4 strength and save himself from a yellow token, making himself safer and from aggressions. Let's see if he will do that. No, he upgrades it, but that means he can't finish the Suez Canal unless, of course, he has knowledge about an event that is coming, which might help him. Yeah, I mean, disbanding another thing would have been extremely costly as well. But delaying the Suez Canal is as well, so it's a tough choice here. He will then take the efficient upgrade. SandHippo, let's see if he can pull off maybe even an aggression. Maybe he can also just use Catherine, which is of course also quite a lot of damage done to his opponents. First of all, he will steal 2 yellow tokens. And he just uses Catherine, and I probably wouldn't have guessed that move here. It's the last stage 2 wonder. I mean, he has that Engineering Genius in hand, but he's in 2 bronze mines and he goes for the Louvre, so that's kind of crazy in one hand. But he's also so low in science that it takes just an eternity until he can invest into something like scientific method or coal. I mean, at least he is getting a bit of culture and can use the blue tokens as resources to maybe invest them into something else. So maybe he's just skipping the whole economy part here, is just at the moment a strength leader, and now wants to get a bit of even more culture income going. Very interested to see how that will work out for him. It might actually be, in some sense, the correct move here, but I myself would never go for that, so maybe a good learning experience that it might actually be viable. Of course, it will also not, maybe it will also not work out at all, but I'm very interested to see how it might work out. It might give him a way now to get out of corruption. Will give him a way to use the engineering genius. So yeah, but he can't even finish it at the next turn. It's a lot of. I can finish it, of course. Yeah, interesting choice. Takes the Conmon, goes for a bit of a hate draft here. Those other things he maybe doesn't really need, and is now denying the Conmon from A440, so at least he also will have a bit of trouble. Not getting the government form will also hurt a little bit for the statue. A440 seats and opens the prosperity, some additional food. That is, I think, good for him. He might now be able to just rebuild the farm. Of course, he might also just finish the statue first. And he will do that, increases population, builds yet another swordsman. He loses Jan Žižka, and he's maybe a bit afraid. Didn't draw that many H2 cards, so he's just going for another swordsman. There is Newton and Watt still in the deck, so let's see if he's just waiting for those, or if he's just going for Robespierre, but Robespierre is not really doing that much. But I guess if something like communism is revealed, or even just one of the other H3 government forms, Robespierre very well might just create a lot of value for him. So it would also not be unreasonable to just take him now, get him for one civil action, get the civil action back, maybe take in something like Rifleman to be a bit better prepared for H3 tactics, and just be fine with that. Let's see. He's indeed going for Robespierre. So, yeah, of course, can hope to get an H3 government form. Interestingly, he's not electing him. Could be an indicator that there's actually an iconoclasm coming. Then, of course, Robespierre is even a better leader. You can just keep him in hand for a while until he gets a chance to use him. And also, of course, gets another 4 culture income from Jan Žižka. Jan Žižka, of course, having been insanely strong generally. Both of the leaders, Homer and Žižka, provided him a lot of value in this game. Now it's Wawrzyniec's turn. Also H3 starts now, actually. SandHippo gets some H3 draws. Wawrzyniec needs to fix his happy faces. Can do that by going for team sports. Needs to spend almost all of his civil actions on that. Is not out of corruption, so that's a bit annoying. And yeah, and just takes the cavalryman here. And yeah, it's a 24 strength, for now probably safe from an aggression. And yeah, but still has 0 labs, has problems with his population income. Maybe he can go for James Watt. James Watt, of course, is always an enabler of a comeback. Maybe also for Newton plus a lab. Of course, now he has maybe an indicator that iconoclasm might be coming. Let's see if there is indeed an iconoclasm coming quickly. Martha Pêcheur seeds. International agreement is revealed. SandHippo again might get some value out of that. Martha Pêcheur lost all of those yellow tokens, has now some insanely big uprising issues. Let's see if he finds a way to fix those. I mean, he has all of those yellow cards in hand. Maybe that will allow him to go for some organized religions here. Yeah, he builds one directly, destroys a lab, plays the revolutionary idea, takes the selective breeding, but yeah, his position is still quite awkward. At least he has now enough resources to at the next turn finish the Suez Canal and upgrade a farm with the efficient upgrade to selective breeding to not have any famine. Again, he will now lose all of the culture basically that he has saved up again. So he is very nicely staying at 0 culture for the moment. With the Suez Canal, at least he will maybe be getting a bit of a boost. So let's see if he, with that, finds a way back into the game. But for now loses 8 culture. At least he loses those first and then gets his production, so that he at least ends at 3. SandHippo takes the international agreement, gets 2 yellow cards, can take the air forces, so with that is maybe somewhat safe. And I guess he will just finish the Louvre this turn. Indeed, needs to increase his population now, takes the frugality, will have a lot of population available, plays the revolutionary idea, is just ignoring the coal, but he can't get it going, would need to sacrifice some tokens from the Louvre, which again costs him some culture income. I imagine he will just, with the Air Force and a bunch of yellow cards, try to be safe, maybe even aggressive, and just hope that maybe the culture income from the Louvre in this game where the economies are so low might be enough to carry him over the finish line, at least maybe at the second position. And I guess that is maybe also a nice position now that we are at the start of H3 for me to make my guess, because maybe you remember it from last year's World Championship. I also did a blind cover of those games, and always at the start of H3 at the end of the fourth player's turn, I did make a guess on how I think the game will finish at the end, and I will do this here again. I think the two players with the best position are probably A440 and SandHippo. SandHippo, of course, has very low resource income, but in case of emergency, at least he has those Louvre tokens lying around. Also doesn't have the biggest science income, but he is just running away with the culture now, has at least good food income, will have a lot of population, and doesn't have a lot of issues that he needs to fix. So I think he is a strong position, but A440 of course also has quite a strong position. Is for the moment only a 2 military action, so not getting a government form did hurt him a bit. But for the moment is still very safe in the strength, has definitely by far the best production going from all players. And if he finds a government form with Robespierre, I think his position might just be quite strong, will then also get even more culture, thanks to the Statue of Liberty, has at the moment still the culture lead, even though SandHippo is catching up now quite quickly. So I think those two players have the strongest position, while Wawrzyniec and Martin Becher maybe have the weakest positions. But Martin Becher might get help with the Suez Canal that might give him a way back into the game. The thing is, he also has to overcome a very big culture gap, so that's something. And Wawrzyniec still at 0 science income. He of course might get James Watt. There's James Watt in mechanized agriculture coming down the row, so James Watt, as I said, can always allow for a great comeback. He has at least a lot of civil actions, yeah. But I still would say that his position is probably a bit weaker than A440's and SandHippo's. My guess at the moment would be that A440 wins the game. But if he gets unlucky with the government form, or maybe gets somewhat punished now for being low in military action, SandHippo has the air forces, can maybe build one at the next turn. Things could get a bit awkward for A440 actually. But if he doesn't get too punished too heavily here, I would say that he will win the game. SandHippo finishes second, Wawrzyniec finishes third, and Martin Becher will lose the game. But it's quite an interesting position, and there might be a lot of nuances to it that I'm not seeing with just taking a quick look at the game here. But Martin Becher is just quite a bit behind in culture and has some big issues still to fix. But I'm very interested to see how this game will be ending. Alright, so A440 first, SandHippo second, Wawrzyniec third, Martin Becher fourth. Let's see if I will be correct with that guess. A440 reveals the classic army tactic, which makes him the strongest and also quite a bit safer. So I do think having this tactic makes me a bit more confident about my guess that he will win the game. Let's see if he will go for a quick Mandela. Of course, Robespierre could provide him a lot of value, but he could also just very quickly switch into Mandela. Interested to see what he will do here. I guess no. I thought he will get an unhappy worker, but he actually doesn't. So now Mandela is not really an option. Instead rebuilds the second farm, takes the civil service. Will he elect it? Probably yes, because he has Robespierre and is now at a lot of civil actions. As soon as he gets something like democracy or even communism, things should be looking good for him. But nonetheless, if SandHippo has an early war drawn, I think even with the classic army tactic, A440 could be a bit vulnerable. The thing is, of course, that maybe his opponents are even more vulnerable. On the other hand, if SandHippo wants to play for first place, he might maybe need to target A440 here. Wawrzyniec opens the National Pride, A440 gets even more culture going. And yeah, I think Wawrzyniec needs to try something with James Watt. A440 not electing Robespierre might be an indicator of an iconoclasm coming, but there are 5 H2 events coming. I think Wawrzyniec needs to just get the James Watt going. I think he can't wait for potential iconoclasm to come out. Let's see what he will do. Probably he will go for the mechanized agriculture. That's just so much stronger. Oh, Alex James Watt is only going for the selective breeding, which actually doesn't get him out of corruption. But I guess he needs the revolutionary deal. He needs James Watt. And then afterwards, he just doesn't have enough civil actions left to really go for the mechanized agriculture and also to get out of corruption. So it's a bit awkward. But with the revolutionary deal, maybe at least he can also have some hope to get into oil. And at least he has now enough food income to increase his population at the next turn. So he now maybe just needs to hope for some big James Watt stuff happening. Let's see, Martin Becher probably will finish the Suez Canal this turn. Wawrzyniec skipped the air forces. Mata Peugeot gets an international tourism with A440. I think offering it to A440 is just saying he is so much ahead, we two won't really compete for any places. And A440, of course, only gets very, very few culture out of that pact. So Mata Peugeot benefits a lot more from that. But yeah, A440 is that much ahead that he just wants to have the one culture against maybe SandHippo, maybe Wawrzyniec, and is fine with Mata Peugeot getting that much culture, but getting that pact that early in H3 is, of course, a benefit and is quite strong. So maybe that will help Mata Peugeot make a bit of a comeback. Generally, he has now those two pacts going, so that's of course quite strong and one of the benefits that you have when you have a bit of a weaker position. And yeah, he finishes the Suez Canal. I guess a colony that offers some additional yellow tokens would be strong. Or of course, autonomous is also always very strong. I guess all of the colonies would be strong. Getting resource from wealthy would be strong as well. Getting for strength and a lot of draws from the strategic territory would be strong as well. So let's see what colony he's having. And I think there were some yellow tokens gained. It's the developed territory too. Maybe even one of the weaker ones, even though the additional science is quite useful for him. But he's now at 6 resource income, 7 culture income, so maybe he will actually manage to not finish last. I think, yeah, the International Tourism Pact really giving him a boost here, fixes his famine this turn, starts generating just a tiny bit of culture, and maybe will just take a copy of reserves, allowing him to get another population, and also just resources. Also not taking the air forces, but in a game with such weak economies, it's just not that easy for the players to support having an air force, and then you can maybe just be fine with skipping it. And those yellow cards are just more important. Now it's SandHippo's turn. Let's see what he will do with his politics phase. Ooh, that of course hurts. SandHippo has a raid available, tries it against Mata Peugeot, and it is actually successful. And with being at +2 resource income, that's over 3 times his production. So that's an insane amount of value for him. And of course, for Mata Peugeot, that's now again a very big setback. So now I'm feeling more comfortable about my guess of picking him as last player. It's also a bit unfortunate for him, so he only would need 1 H3 defense card or 2 H2 defense cards. It certainly could be possible to have those, but he's a bit unlucky here, doesn't have those available, and SandHippo will now get a big boost. And maybe can now set up for a bit of strength, because he can build an air forces this turn, helping him to get out of corruption. But he can still build a second one at the next turn, and if he has a war available, that might make him quite dangerous actually. So increases his population, not using the frugality yet, because that might actually give him some corruption issues, and he's actually willing to spend a token from the Louvre. So I guess he just wants to go for 2 air forces already this turn, maybe has a nice follow-up aggression, and then just can maybe survive on his relatively weak economy. First of all, because the economy of his opponents is also quite bad, but second of all, because he might just get a lot of aggressions off if he has had the right draws, and at least he had those Colossus draws. So he builds 2 air forces here, is at 52 strength, very threatening now, and just takes this copy of reserves. Yeah, I'm very interested to see what his next politics phases will look like. Now it's A440's turn. No government form yet in a row, so that's a bit awkward for him. Let's see if he will use his politics phase. He sees immigration is revealed, and another setback for Mata Peugeot. He loses 2 population. Now things are looking really rough for him. A440 goes for Robespierre here, wants to have more military actions. His willingness to elect him here is maybe also an indicator that maybe Iconoclasm is actually not coming. Maybe he just wanted to get the 4 culture from Jan Žižka earlier on. And yeah, I guess he will take the air forces. That will help him a lot to be safe. He needs to take those. I think there's no way around it. And maybe in order to be very safe from a war, he also needs to make sure to be able to build 2 of them at the next turn. So he takes the air forces and just takes some stuff. Is actually going for Chaplain. Yeah, I guess he will be a good leader for him with the movies. Yeah, so, and the happy face might actually be useful as well, even before he can build a movie. So I would say with that, Chaplin is a good pick, and I mean, he needs to spend his civil action somehow here. So I guess, yeah, I guess that should be fine. Let's see, Wawrzyniec, if is there an early oil, or how will he continue playing? There's no early oil. International negotiations are revealed. And SandHippo is the strongest, Mata Bashir the weakest, so Mata Bashir getting hit by yet another bad thing. Needs to pay 3 signs to SandHippo. And yeah, that's of course, yeah, another setback. And I think things are looking really rough for him now. But one big war against one of his competitors, and still he might be completely back in the game. So maybe making him a bit threatening now could be a way how he can still avoid finishing last here. Wawrzyniec uses the rich land to go for the second selective breeding upgrade. Actually is willing to take Mandela for expensive here, but he will give him a lot of culture, has now even more civil actions, so costs a lot of civil actions, but will get some civil actions back, and has the potential to get a lot of culture. Maybe needs to go for some hopes here, replaces James Watt, uses him as a nice transitional leader, and at least he has now the good food income, gets more population out. Science-wise, he is very low. Can at least go for the rockets with the revolutionary idea, so that card might be very important. Even builds a lab in order to be able to go for the rockets, maybe an indicator that he has a tactic for them, like mobile artillery. Yeah, but he is certainly very much in danger of an aggression and a war. But at least his competitors might be as well. Mata Bashir has at least just enough science left to go for the professional sport, spend all of his science on that technology, takes the urban growth, copies the classic army tactic, is a 27 strength, and yeah, maybe just wants to hope now that he doesn't get hit by any big war or something. And let's see, SandHippo, has he a war, has he an aggression? It'll be very interesting. He can also hit A440 now. Could maybe be a chance to play for the first place here if he hits him. Let's see what will be the target of his potential aggression. It's indeed A440, so that is quite a swing. SandHippo getting those early air forces, having the defensive army tactic allows him to really get a lot of value out of his politics phases, and A440 will be damaged by that, and can only build 1 air force at his next turn, and SandHippo might be starting to close the gap to A440 here. He increases his population, builds yet another cannon, gets even stronger, destroys some stuff, builds another swordsman, spends another Louvre token, goes for another swordsman, is now at 65 strength. Looks like he has even more good aggressions, destroys some stuff, and yeah, just wants to maybe play an aggression every turn if possible. Takes the communism, so also denies this nice government form from A440, is going for a bit of a government form denial. That was the one weak spot from A440, and he gets a bit punished for that now. He could have had chances to take a Conmon or a Republic early on, decided against it, is now getting punished, which is also a bit unfortunate, but he can maybe also go for the military theory, so he might still find ways to be somewhat safe here, but SandHippo has now that much strength that, yeah, it is quite difficult for A440 to be safe from an aggression. Maybe almost impossible. At least maybe he could find ways to set him up to be safe from a war. But he doesn't have enough science to go for air forces plus military theory, even in 2 turns. So, yeah, let's see how he will deal with all of that. A440 first of all seats. The Cold War is revealed, and that might make a big difference for him. Because now he has enough science to go for military theory and air forces, and that could help him a lot to make himself safe on one hand and maybe go for a war or some stuff on his own. So he goes for air forces, increases his population, builds an air force. He doesn't go for the military theory even. It's a bit of a surprise for me. I guess he can still go for another air force, but that could really open up some offensive possibilities for him. I guess he can still declare war, play the patriotism, build another air force, but still that's a lot of strength. Maybe he's hoping to get a copy at the next turn. It's not really something that his opponents will need, and maybe it's unlikely that both copies will be taken away. Maybe he's hoping for that. But yeah, I would have kind of expected him to take the military theory. He can of course also hope to get the fundamentalism with the Robespierre revolution. So let's see how that will work out for him. He then also takes the efficient upgrade. Now it's Wawrzyniec's turn. He seats, opens the crime wave. He and Mata Bashir gets hit by they get hit by that. Takes the reserves, takes another copy of reserves. He is not taking the military theory, so now both Mata Bashir and SandHippo would need to take a copy. Let's see. I mean, it could be worthwhile maybe as a hate draft for Mata Bashir, because if SandHippo maybe can go for war against A440, it could be beneficial for him. but A440 is maybe as well prepared or just well prepared already that it's maybe unlikely that SandHippo will do that anyway. But on the other hand, SandHippo probably wants to play for first. We will see there is actually that Iconoclasm. It was actually in there. A440 now losing Robespierre before he can use him for a revolution. So sadly that didn't work out well for him. Wawrzyniec is actually now the only one not getting hit by that event. SandHippo loses Catherine. The military action, I think, would have been still quite nice for him. Martin Peugeot loses some culture income. He will destroy a mine this turn, builds another professional sports. Is probably hoping for Pierre at this point. Pierre would just give him a lot of culture here. There's also a red cross. Maybe the players can also hope towards something like this. Wawrzyniec has 2 reserves in hand, so for all of those weak economy players, the red cross might just be the one wonder that they can build. So that might be an important card in this game. Martin Peugeot builds another rifleman, at least can threaten to go for another army here. Let's again see what SandHippo will do during his turn. He goes for war against A440. A440 will be able to get a military theory, but that might just not be enough. I mean, he gets plus 13 from building an air force, another plus 5, so that's plus 18, that's 63, and that's already less than SandHippo has starting into his turn. So SandHippo really trying to get that first place here with targeting A440, and I guess that's probably the correct choice. Can even go for military theory of his own. Is now at 0 science, doesn't need any more science, spends his last blue tokens, and can actually build another air force, going up to 80 strength. So, yeah, my guess of A440 finishing first might be completely wrong at the end. But on the other hand, SandHippo's economy is now quite weak. He might get punished by impacts. Can't go. I guess he could still go for the red cross. Potentially is denying the next government form. So let's see if A440 will be able to get into a government form before the end of the game. Now he needs to defend himself. Chaplain is now coming in quite useful with the happy faces, so grabbing him I think was quite a good choice. The first impact is revealed, impact of agriculture. Sadly I didn't take a look at which player was the one who seeded it. All of the players potentially could have. A440 gets the most culture out of it. He will go for Chaplain now, goes for the military theory, builds an air force, can maybe also build yet another unit, takes another copy of patriotism, so does his best to defend himself, but yeah, will now a lot of culture will be stolen now, but his economy is still a lot better. So I do think his chances might still not be that bad to win the game here. Because there are a lot of impacts that are just a lot better for him than for SandHippo. Wawrzyniec goes for the military build-up, just maybe wants to do his best to somehow threaten a bit of strength, goes for the air forces that he took earlier, and early on he built that lab maybe to be able to go for the air forces. Interestingly, builds an air force and an air force rocket. For the rocket, builds a knight and a rocket, and if he gets 9 resources out of that, he has 14. I guess he can build 2 more rockets here, which at least threatens a bit of strength, but of course not nearly enough to defend himself, but maybe enough to not be the target of a war. Martin Peugeot plays an aggression against Wawrzyniec. I guess his hope is maybe that, yeah, Wawrzyniec just gets hit by even worse stuff than him, and there was even a chance that this aggression could go through, but Wawrzyniec has the defense card that he needs to defend this. Martin Peugeot taking more urban growth, Pierre not being on the row yet, he takes the engineering, just takes some stuff. I guess he mostly would like to have some yellow cards here. Has SandHippo yet another war? Does he have another aggression? First of all, he will steal some culture from A440, is now in the culture lead, but will that lead be enough, considering the weak economy that he's having? So he might need another war, maybe some good aggressions. He has an aggression, tries again to play it against A440, but he can defend. He has actually 3 defense cards drawn, so a bit lucky for him, but he also did a lot to defend himself, and yeah. I think his pick of the patriotism early on over the military theory also worked out well. He got the military theory and has now even more resources to be even more threatening, maybe making the difference between him being safe from a war or not. And as I maybe should have mentioned it at the beginning, of course I'm taking a blind look at this game here, and if I'm saying that some stuff is looking weird or that I would have maybe done something differently, then of course you need to consider that first of all those are the best players in the world, and second of all they have invested a lot more time into their turns than I, and they have knowledge about the military cards, so you have to of course take that into account, but of course I still want to share my opinion. But yeah, I think there were already some turns in that game where I said, oh, that looks awkward, and then I guess it was the right move. So I think that was another one of those. Thanks to the patriotism, A440 can threaten to go for another classic army tactic here. And yeah, SandHippo doesn't get his aggression off. That might be quite a big swing, getting that aggression off or not. But he has another politics phase, has another chance to maybe draw a war or an aggression. If he has a war in hand, it could have been even an idea to let that one stay in hand and declare it against Wawrzyniec or Martha at a time when they don't have a possibility to resign. But now the player to declare war is actually A440. And yeah, he can declare the war, and with the patriotism actually go for another army, also making him safe from an aggression. So he starts destroying some stuff now. Builds another army, is now at 79 strength. Finally, he will get the democracy. He's actually missing some science to get into it, but maybe still wants to have it in hand. And then he develops the movies, doesn't have enough resource to build one, but will get a lot of culture from that war. There is, of course, a big chance, however, that Wawrzyniec might just resign now. On the other hand, he also still has the hope that SandHippo maybe just chooses Martha as a war target, and that both of them will be extremely low. So it's not completely unreasonable that Wawrzyniec won't resign here. So let's see. He's indeed not resigning here. And yeah, as said, he will now lose that much culture that there's not a lot of culture left to steal for SandHippo if he wants to go for a war, making it a lot more likely that he will go against Martha. And if Martha gets hit by a war as well, Wawrzyniec is still in the game. So yeah, that is a realistic chance. So he stays in the game, even though he will now lose a lot of points. And at least he gets the red cross, can't actually build a lot of stages, but takes it away from his opponents. And who knows, maybe there's even something like economic progress coming. H4 starts. Martha cedes. The autonomous territory is revealed. And yeah, SandHippo is able to win that one. For an Air Force, let's see, it might be a big indicator on what he takes here. He takes the culture. He's not taking the resources, which I think is an extremely big indicator that he doesn't have a war here. Otherwise, he might want to either just not bid on the colony or maybe take the resources now so that he can declare a war, build another air force. So I think we might not be seeing another war from SandHippo here. And that is a bit unfortunate for him. Of course, he had the one war, and also some aggressions, but yeah, he might maybe needs another one. But who knows, maybe he even has another one, but still wanted to get the colony, but then I think it doesn't really make sense to win for that colony. But let's see. Very interested to see if he has an aggression or a war available. He has an aggression, goes for the armed intervention, gets some culture from there, but yeah, I think a war could have been really big here. And with that, the hopes of Wawrzyniec, of maybe Martha getting hit by a big war now, also are not fulfilled. SandHippo builds a step of the Red Cross, builds another arena. Martha managed to get Pierre. Of course, SandHippo could have eyed Pierre as well. So another thing that he's not getting right now. I think things might be turning around in A440's favor again. SandHippo takes the revolutionary idea and also Einstein. But I guess, unless he gets help from events, will not be able to develop any tech with him. But maybe he has an Occupy. A440 is stealing a lot of culture from Wawrzyniec. Seeds opens the freedom of movement, will use that to put a scientific method into movies, and out of the sudden he, yeah, is able to build a movie. And I think that event was also seeded by him, and that, of course, was very important to develop it the turn before. Now he can build a movie, gets a lot of culture, gets the step of the Red Cross, and with that, I think things are now looking good for him again. And with that, of course, also for my guess. Takes now the next government form, but he survived on despotism for the whole game. Wawrzyniec builds a step of the Red Cross again, so at least got 2 steps. Oh no, I think only 1 step out of it. I think he didn't build a step before, right? No, so only 1 step, but if it was finished at the end, at least he is also getting some culture for the colonies. Martha can use the Olympic Games. Seeds. Pact of Wonders is revealed. Plus 12 for A440, plus 5 for Wawrzyniec, plus 3 for Martha plus 8 for SandHippo. Martha increases population, builds a lab, builds a religion. The lab might be good for balance, for variety. Does it make a difference for impact of science? Indeed it does. So yeah, that lab he could be rewarded for that in a lot of impacts. And now SandHippo's last turn, no aggression, but maybe a good impact. Impact of Harmony is revealed, +8 for 840, 12 for Wawrzyniec, 12 for Marta Bescher, 8 for SandHippo. So yeah, those impacts are quite low with that crazy game. Players have really not the highest score in those impacts. SandHippo builds a step of the red cross. I think Marta Bescher, did he have a chance to build a step? Maybe not. But even if he would have, maybe he is not really an interest in it, because while he gets 6 culture, Wawrzyniec also then gets 6 culture, because SandHippo will definitely finish that, and then against Wawrzyniec doesn't really make a difference whether he builds a step or not. I guess against the others, but maybe it's a stretch to finish before one of the others, I guess. SandHippo goes for Einstein, but can't really do anything this turn. And then before the final impacts, we can see that A440 is in the lead, and I think also his impacts probably are a bit better than SandHippo's. SandHippo, even an impact of strength, is now won by A440. So yeah, I think SandHippo might have needed one more war. I think he will not win the game now, but I think his lead will be good enough to Marta Bescher. So I think the positions probably will stay that way. But let's see if I'm wrong about this. We have the impact of culture, that's good for A440, Marta Bescher. I mean, he's still 40 culture behind a SandHippo, but he has some good impacts. Let's see if he somehow can get a bit closer, but 40 is, I think, too much to overcome. There's the impact of competition, 21 for SandHippo, so he catches up some points to A440 and has now even a bigger lead before Marta Bescher. We then have the impact of government. It's not that bad for A440 considering that he's still in despotism. SandHippo catches up some points, so maybe SandHippo has actually some fine impacts. We then have the impact of happiness, good for A440, get some points again towards SandHippo. Marta Bescher catches up some points, Wawrzyniec gets some points. There's an impact of colonies, so SandHippo getting a bit closer again. Gap between Marta Bescher and SandHippo definitely being too big now. And I'm not sure if there's any impact that would allow SandHippo to catch up to A440. There's an impact of science, +15 for A440. With that, things are quite clear. And yeah, the positions at the end indeed stay like that. So A440 is able to win this game. Congratulations to him. A good start into the mission of making it to the finals. And of course, ideally defending his World Championship title. I think 4-player games are maybe also the player count where he shines the most. And another example we have seen here. So I was also correct about my guess of him winning the game. SandHippo did put some good efforts in though. And I do think if he maybe would have found that second war and maybe declared it against Marta Bescher, there would have certainly been a chance for him to win the game. But he didn't find it, and he went for a very interesting approach. With that Louvre, I think I never would have gone for that, but I think it might have been the correct choice, and he has shown some great understanding of the game position here. And yeah, finishes at the second position here. A really surprising war over territory, declaring it as the weakest with Nostradamus, but out of the sudden being the strongest. And yeah, I think so. A great game from him as well. At the end, only enough for second place, but he gave himself a shot for first place. The blunder could have worked. He could have had a second war, and those two things combined, I think, would have been enough for him to win the game. Marta Bescher is at the third position, a good example of that you should never give up. His position was looking quite bad. I picked him as the last position. I was wrong about that. But yeah, if there's one very one player that is going for a lot of military, there's always the hope that maybe another player will be chosen as a war target. In that case, by A440, Wawrzyniec stayed in the game. I think it was the correct choice. If SandHippo draws a war, I think there's a good chance he might go for that war against Marta Bescher. And then Wawrzyniec might very well still finish third, but SandHippo didn't have that war available, and with that Wawrzyniec finishes at the last position at the end. But that was quite a crazy game. I'm very glad that I decided to cover that one. And yeah, lots of crazy stuff happening. I hope you enjoyed that game very much as well. Let me know in the comments if you want to see some more games from that stage. Peter, who is also covering his games of the World Championship, will maybe also cover some of the games, so that maybe ideally a lot of the games of the upper brackets semifinals group will be covered. So let me know if you're interested to see more games. Of course, we will also continue taking a look at my own World Championship group. And yeah, let me know in the comments what you think about this game. Thanks for watching, congratulations to A440 for winning the game. I'm interested to see how the group will continue, and with that, thanks for watching, have a nice time, and see you in the next video.